Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the MSP Cyber Roundtable. We are joined here by Debasish Pramanik from SysTools, Ameen Sait, who's representing the North American market here for SysTools as well. We're doing something a little special today because we're bringing in an outside expert to talk about digital forensics. We're going to be spending time doing a little bit of a deep dive on that. But then we're going to be talking about really, what your responsibilities are as a provider, to really take care of your customers in those situations where forensics evidence is required. Um, in any case, before we get into the depth of that, I just got to finish up my green room note here, which is I'm in a little bit of a coffee debt today. I'm a bad caffeine addict. I take my espresso straight with a little bit of hot water. But in any case, I ran out of beans today, and so I had to go walk into the new coffee shop in town and come back. But I'm a cup short. Um, but Ameen asked me how I take my coffee, and early in my career, it used to be with milk and lots of sugar. And one of the graybeards in my first IT department told me, "Yeah, lots of coffee is how I got diabetes." So and he's like, you know, he was really adamant that I needed to stop putting sugar in my coffee if I was going to be drinking it all day, like every day of my career. So I dropped sugar, and then I did a few years as a consultant, and you're bouncing from client side to client side to client side, showing up in strange kitchens with strange coffee, and man, pouring strange milk from strange refrigerators into your coffee is like, there are people in the office that know that milk is bad, and they leave it there anyway, and it's the contractor that finds out, right? And is like, so I stopped putting milk in my coffee. I went, and I'm just a straight coffee drinker now, and that's it. The stronger, the better. Anyway, do you guys have caffeine habits, or am I the only addict here on the call?
Um, so I used to drink a lot of coffee early on in my career, but about I would say about 7 years ago, I kind of switched over to green tea. Um, I hated it then. I hate it now, but it is a lot um, easier to handle green tea from a digestive perspective than coffee with or without sugar. So, yeah, I've stuck to it, even though it doesn't really taste very good, but it's fine. You kind of build your resistance to it.
Yeah, I understand. There's all sorts of health benefits here. The caffeine in green tea is actually, or in tea in general, it's different. It's
Hmm.
it's it's not just the tea. The actual caffeine itself is better for you.
Yep.
Yeah. What about you, Debasish?
I'm an Indian tea person. I just drink tea with sugar.
So, what kind of tea, though? I mean,
It's Indian tea, so that's what we take for morning and evening. You know,
yeah. Oh,
but
evening. You're
not
an evening tea
much.
drinker too.
Yeah, we need at least in the morning and to start them in the evening. Just to after lunch is when I take my second tea, just to ensure
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
not sleepy after my lunch. You know.
All right. Well, we're all addicts on this call. Um, before before we get into forensics, I want to just introduce the personalities here today. So, Amin, you've been on the show before, and thank you for returning, and bringing Debasish with you. I've been trained in digital forensics, like the 101 of how not to make a mistake for someone else that's a professional, right? What not to do, what to do, basics of chain of custody rules, stuff like that. Um, but I'm excited about this, frankly, because I'm a security geek. So I can't wait to go into that. But before we do that, how did you guys end up in your career? I mean, do you want to go first? I know that I ran into you at SciDef, but you spent some time at IBM before that. Talk to us about like how you arrived to your current chair.
So yeah, thanks, Matt. So yeah, primarily was with IBM security group for about 14 years, and then I was the chief revenue officer for SciDef for a couple of years. And I actually was part of a deputation from Canada that went to India to present SciDef as a group of solutions from Canada into the Indian market. And strangely, this was back in 22, and Debashish was one of the presenters for another solution for a company called as Lock. So he was representing them for their solution around in India as well. So we kind of met at that point in time at the Canadian embassy, because this was all organized by the Canadian government and things like that. And we became good friends. And fast forward a couple of years, and Debashish was looking to be able to set up something for North America, where he wanted to expand their operations into North America. And he kind of tapped me on the shoulder and asked me if I would be interested in leading that. And here I am. I'm part of now the SysTools group. I head their North America practice. Uh, I mean, we do primarily digital forensics, but we do other things as well. AD migration is another one that we do. But yeah, forensics is a very big part of our business and growing at this point in time.
Well, I think one of the most interesting parts I've heard about your career story was that really early part when like security was like, I mean, you're a veteran in this space, and there's a bunch of us security guys that like to think we've been around a little while, right? But I mean, you really helped shape the industry at a time when it wasn't really well formed yet. So can you just tell us like what was different back then? I mean companies were really not taking this seriously as like dedicated spending, right? So how did you even operate?
So at that time, the thing is, the solutions that were kind of being built, and I'm going back about 20 years ago. You're talking about things like the McAfee solution, where they had an actual hardware solution, or WatchGuard with their firewalls and everything else. It was, I would say, at that point in time, it was more physical. There would be physical firewalls, physical and AV solutions that were being implemented at the banks and some of the larger organizations. Over the last, I would say, 8 or 10 years, you've seen everything practically move to a virtual stance, whether it is an endpoint solution, whether it's a firewall, whether it's a data security solutions. And it's further now enhanced by a growing use of AI solutions that are out there in the market as well. Unfortunately, I would say that in the last 20 years, the cybersecurity footprint, we have fallen further and further behind. And the reason I say that is because, unfortunately, whether you talk about any of the big players, whether it's IBM or Google or Palo Alto and everybody kind of operates within their own bubble. Yes, they do cooperate amongst themselves, but the cooperation is not like what the hackers do. And the hackers are, whether it's a state-sponsored gang or whether it's a private-sponsored gang, they are cooperating. Like you can get one set of folks that basically write the code to be able to do the penetration. The other one actually does the penetration, and the third one actually negotiates with the customers to get the Bitcoin out of them. So this is, so there's a lot of cooperation between a lot of these different players, and it's become even more complicated now because they started using AI very effectively to be able to do all kinds of spear phishing attacks, and amongst other things that they're trying to do as well. And as you can see, the end result of this is that the number of attacks are not going down, the number of attacks are going up, and the number of hacks are going up. And you can also see it how it's reflected in the insurance industry, where a few years ago it was easy to be able to get cyber insurance of up to $10 million. There is no one in the industry today that will give you $10 million cyber insurance, period. And the amount of questions that they're going to ask you to be able to give you cyber insurance is it's like a book that you need to fill up. And you got to be at every stance, you got to be able to have something that they can refer to. Otherwise they're not going to offer you cyber insurance. In fact, if you look at France, they've stopped offering cyber insurance, period. It is no longer being allowed because the attacks are too prolific. So all I can say is that from our perspective, from SysTools perspective, we are after the fact, after the attack has happened, where we are doing the digital forensics as to how, the where, the what, the when, the why, and how did they get in and stuff like that. But we are after the fact. But unless I would say that unless we get to a further higher degree of cooperation amongst the good guys, the bad guys are at this point in time, they're currently winning the game.
Yeah, it's really interesting that point you made about coordination. I remember a time, it was not that long ago. It was about 10 years ago when the security industry was a little different, and it didn't matter who you worked for, and whether you were an academic or an independent or you worked for a large corporation with a big security business. There was free flow of information. It wasn't coordinated very effectively, but people, there were not these artificial barriers set up, right?
Hmm.
And then people are protecting their data now, their defense tools. Um, the U.S. federal government put these rules in place about how people are required to share threat data, but it didn't materialize the way they had imagined. So
Hmm.
it's a little disappointing. Uh, I could I could I could talk about the basically how good the threat actors are now at their business. I mean, really, they are quite good. But I think you're a little bit wrong about how SysTools gets involved after the fact, because the reality is the importance of digital forensics is that there's some losses to prevent still, right? Like,
Mhm.
you can unwind the attack that's maybe hasn't reached its conclusion. You can unwind the attack and find the attacker, right, and stop them from doing what they're doing. You can unwind that attack and figure out how someone can't repeat that same attack again, right? And that's
Mhm.
I mean, that's really it's really the defender's job, right, to do those things. So um, anyway, Debasish, tell me how you got started in forensics. Like, I know a bunch of people in law enforcement, that have been doing this a long time. I'm curious, um, how you got into that space. And SysTools has been around a while, but maybe we could rewind to before you put on that SysTools hat. Like, how did you
Okay.
get into security? What was like the first tool you built?
Okay. Thank you for yeah. So having me here. So I started my career in 2000 as a software programmer for enterprise marketing software, and in 2007 or 5 or 6, I was an architect for their new platform. And around 2007 is where my friend reached out to me and said, Devashish, I have a zip file. Can you reverse engineer and get me data out of a zip file without WinZip? So it was an interesting challenge. Like, how do you have a zip file? You have to first understand the format, how a zip file is structured from a file structure point of view. So I read about it on the web, and wrote a program for this, and it works well. I could able to read a bad zip file and extract data out of it, which is where we started our SysTools journey for data recovery company. And Zip was the first, and from there, in next many years, we have been able to reverse engineer 40 plus file formats, any file format, whether it's SQL Server, Outlook, PST file, OST, EDB, plenty of files we have reverse engineer. Now, around 4 5 years after SysTools started, what we found in our customers' profile was most of them are typically investigator, and they're coming to us for certification that your product works this way, and this is how you are able to, extract data or recover data or find duplicates in data. Can you give us a certificate which we can submit in the code? And we said, who are these guys and why are they all using our product? And this is where we understand or get introduced to the world of the great world of digital forensic. And this is where we started building. What we did was, after that, is we culminated all our products into a single product called as Mail Examiner for email forensics. And this is where our life started in digital forensic. We have been in digital forensic for more than 12 years now, or I would say more than 12 years. We are developing products, as I said, Mail Examiner, used by law enforcement, federal agency in US and Canada and India and across world. And we, for last 7 years, we are now doing a lot of investigation for law enforcement, enterprise, small to medium organization, where, as you said correctly, for due to the threat actor, the attacks happen, and this is where we, as a digital forensic investigator, come into picture and look for those traces, how it happened. There has to be a question, there has to be answer for those four W's and H, when, who, where, and how. This has to be answered, and this is where a forensic guy like us come into picture, and we focus on finding those answer to those questions. Yeah, so that's been a
So
so yeah.
wait, can we back up a little bit? So let's talk about these early customers you had. And I think when people hear the word forensics, they think about these crime scene investigation TV shows, right? With the guys
Yeah,
in the white suits, and the funny shoes, and they're like taking the Q-tips out, and they're like looking for fingerprints and stuff. So, I mean, what what happens after a cyber attack? I know you mentioned email forensics, and I can sort of imagine. I'm a I'm a little bit of an IT guy. I I get that, like, basically there's a lot of trails that are left in email, right? And if
right.
people have a deep email box, right,
Yeah,
that trail can go back like a really like long time, and you can see like everyone they've talked to, every website they've ever registered for, and it's the core of what could become a research strategy, right?
right.
Because you can see all the other things that might need to be researched as a basis of that email chain, and then if you have
Mm.
multiple mailboxes, clearly that can get more complicated. But I mean, what are the other types of things that criminals or attackers, or threat actors leave behind? I mean, it's the email, I understand. I mean, that makes sense if it's an insider threat, like someone was they committed fraud and they left an email in their box. But like, attackers don't intentionally leave email around, right? So
Right.
what are they leaving?
So I'll be very honest. When we started, like maybe 7 years back or 8 years back, our forensic practice, things were still simple. So we will be able to trace, very, if not difficult, it is not, or if not trivial, it is not difficult to find the traces of those actors, maybe an IP address, or maybe a email ID, something that we can trace back. But with time, and as Amin said nicely, with AI and all, things have become very difficult currently. Like, today we are a forensic partner for a couple of banks in India, and every time there is an attack or data breach, we are called. It does take a lot of different ways for us. We have to reinvent ourselves. Our team has to get understand and find different ways to reach out to that, at how it has happened, when it has happened, who are the actors. So the challenges has increased over a period of time. As I said, in initial days, it was easier for us to find out, and maybe in 3 4 days we'll give you answer. But today it takes 2 weeks to come to some conclusion. Investigation that we do specifically for these attacks, those take times. We, as I said, we do a lot of cybercrime investigation for corporates and law enforcement, uh, where things are easier. I think here we are looking at somebody's laptop, somebody's mobile phone. We know they are suspect, so finding data and correlating with the type of crime, it is much easier job than comparing with a cyber attack. Cyber attack has really become challenging with current today's scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the difference between like someone's phone left behind in a
Yeah,
crime scene or taken
yeah,
off as a suspect, and what, like 1,000 computers and devices and like
yeah,
like
yeah.
a lot of like complexity, right?
To
Well,
give you, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know. I
I
mean,
can give you example. Sorry.
should we jump into the one? Are we ready for the 101? Like we can start from the beginning and just like really give a real definition to digital forensics. Does that sound good?
Yeah. So you want to so for digital forensic is all about, how do you uh, uh, use for investigations, more different ways of investigation to find uh, uh, right evidence from the digital artifacts is what I will say.
Well,
So
well,
trade
let's jump in and start the segment because I know you have some
just
materials, right? Okay, so we're
yes, yeah.
gonna
So let me. I'm
we're gonna go into the digital forensics 101 with our expert here, who's really pioneering an industry at the cutting edge of the tools, but also the practice, right? So
Yeah.
with that, let's jump right in.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, yep, go for it.
Thank you. So I will welcome everyone. So I'll basically go through, as I say, digital forensic 101, and I always use this phrase. It's not rocket science. I believe everybody's in this call or in the world has a Sherlock Holmes in their themselves, and we all behave like Sherlock Holmes whenever time demands, whenever situation demand. So digital forensic is another way for expressing, bringing your Sherlock Holmes with different type of evidence. So let me just take you through some of the, I basically divide the entire world, or last 30 years from 1970, I will say, uh, to today's last 50 years into two part. The old world, maybe before 2005 or 10, I will say, and then before after 2005 or 10, I would say, as a new world. Now, whenever you have heard of crime in the old world, you may have heard of a murder where bullets have been fired, or a blast has happened, then there are people, law enforcement comes, they try to fight. So if you see this picture, and I will say, please see this picture more carefully, because this is very relevant out here. You see all these guys who are here are very much protected, and they're trying to collect evidences from a crime scene. And then they have put this scene, and which you'll see very across anywhere the crime happens. Uh, do not cross or do not touch anything in this crime area. Or a theft case, again, these things used to happen in the old world, like somebody snatching back. Does happen today also, but not much. Today's crime is much more, people can do all these things sitting at their place. So somebody sitting in, say, X country can log in into your account and impersonate as yourself, right? That identity theft happens. Or somebody can log into your bank account, get your credentials from somewhere, from dark web or somewhere, and able to transfer money into their account. And this has become very news every day. There are plenty of news where these things are happening across the world. Or ransomware attack where your data has been completely encrypted, and then people, as Amin was saying, bitcoins have been asked to recover your data. And this is what the world has changed. In past, the crimes will be more in physical in nature. You can see things happening in front of you, or you will see a crime scene area. But in today's world, most of these crime, which is now being called as cyber crime, happens in the virtual world, where we don't know where the boundaries of crime is not limited to the country where the crime happened. It can happen from anywhere in the world. a person sitting in Y country can do something in a country A, B, C, and you have no clue about it. So the world has changed, the challenges have come a lot, and this is where I will say, how the experts, or how those people who are dealing in crimes has to change. Another example of old, in old world crimes, as I'm saying, is the evidences were very much known. So you have a bullet, a fingerprint. So I the law enforcement guy going into the finger to crime area, collect those fingerprint, and then matches his database. Blood stain. I think I have seen couple of episode in Discovery Channel where a drop of blood stain was used to identify that it's not a suicide, it's a murder by somebody. So those criminal knowledge was used to identify the accused, or how the crime was done, whether whether evidence could be a gun or knife or any other form of weapon which can be used to commit the crime. But in today's world, the evidence have changed. So for this world of old world, there is a science which was typically called as which was called as forensics, but they are dealing with, as I said, traditional world crimes. There is a science of criminology which is there, which people studies and become expert, and then they're trying to identify the who's and where, how, when, how happened, to identify the perpetrator of the crime. But in case of today's world, the challenge have increased. So all these cyber crimes can happen from a desktop, from a mobile phone. It can happen from social media accounts like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. It can happen from a cloud. So somebody take a free account from an AWS, or from any other cloud provider, cheap cloud provider, or any other cloud provider, can commit a crime and attack somebody. Email, somebody can send an email to start. Things which has come latest, and I'm not sure whether you people are now using drone to commit certain type of crimes, and you will be surprised. Xbox, we are aware of certain crimes committed in North America, where Xbox was used to commit the crime. Xbox is a Windows operating system, so the perpetrator of the crime was able to use the base OS to initiate an attack on some user in the world. So the challenges have increased, and this is where, and what we call this, all these collection as digital evidence. They are all cyber evidence or digital evidences, and the traditional form of forensic cannot be applied to them in wholehearted. The certain uh, principle of investigation that can be applied, but overall it is a completely different uh, type of investigation. A different type of expertise are required when a crime happened using these artifacts. So this is where the whole science of digital forensic come into picture. Uh, so if I say what is digital forensic, I will basically, it's a branch of forensic science which is basically focusing on recovery and investigation of of evidences found in digital devices, or or it is also been known as computer forensic, and it cover investigation of all type of all the devices. So investigation can happen in any form of devices. I think you are aware of the Google Home, the Alexa of the Amazon. uh, we were, I think, a couple of years back when I was in US in one of the forensic conference. One of the thing that we came to know was there's an instruction given to certain police forces that whenever you're going to the crime scene, don't make any noise. First, find out whether there is a Alexa in that home, or a Google Home in that home. First, switch it off. then if you want to talk, just to ensure if there is any form of data that can be captured or taken from those devices. Okay. Now, the principle of investigation, whether it's traditional or old crime or new, same. I'm not talking about the overall principles of criminal investigation. I'm just saying of very two important aspect of investigation, which is very, very important. Whether you have a you're dealing with traditional artifacts like knife, gun, and all, or you're dealing with cybercrime, the evidence cannot be tampered. This is something that you have to very much understand. Whether it's a cybercrime where attack has happened, whether a cybercrime has happened by one of your employee, or by sending an email, or something they have done with a mobile or any other form of digital artifacts, the evidence cannot be tampered. This is the first something that should be in the heart of everybody who's into IT, or dealing with IT stuff. And second is admissibility of these evidence in court. If it is not tampered, if it cannot be proved tampered in the court, it will be admissible. So these two are very, very important. I can give you an example from our own investigation. So what happened whenever a corporate investigation happens, we are called, and we typically go on the second or the third day, because the first day is something has happened. They will typically call us the second or third day on the IT guys to find who has done it. There will be pressure from the CXOs that find out what has happened. And what we find in some of the cases is the computer on which the crime was done on those machines. As a result, you have basically tampered the evidence, because that was the machine used to send the email. You're not supposed to do anything on that machine. The moment you install something, you're tampering the evidences. So for digital it is very important as a SOP to your IT guy or to your team members that evidence cannot be tampered. Don't test the evidences unless a forensic guy come, or does his investigation starts.
Can I
Uh,
ask you a little bit about that? So
yes, sir.
it
Sure.
used to be, like 10 years ago.
Yep.
I don't know if it was called digital forensics back then. I remember we would you'd pull the hard drive, and you could stick it in a duper, and you could take an actual one-to-one copy of that disk, and then you could put the disk back, and then you'd have your copy, and you might even keep that as a master copy, and you might take another copy. But in any case, that was that methodology. But these days we're telling our service provider partners, don't turn the machine off. Don't don't turn the machine off. Maybe disconnect it from the network, but don't turn it off. So how do you go about not tampering the evidence, but also getting the data off these things without turning them off? I mean, that
So
sounds.
I think the case that you are talking about, I think it's more of a ransomware attack. If I'm not wrong, let me know. Suppose there is a ransomware attack happen, and correct me if I'm. We
Well,
always tell maybe
maybe. I mean,
I'm just giving an
before
example. Uh,
early on, our partners, right? They don't
yeah.
necessarily know what has happened, right?
Yes.
They get
Yeah.
a call, someone's like, something funny is going on, and they're like, their first move is to what?
So just take the machine. So in case of this, suppose there's a ransomware attack, we always tell our customers, please don't switch off the machine. Keep the machine on, but just remove it from the network. Because we believe, I think the ransomware guys have become very advanced. They are using AI and all, but initial days they will use a key, and because the key has been used for encrypting the files, the key may be on the RAM. So we'll use a memory forensics to recover the key, identify the key, if we can use the key to reverse the ransomware attack. So that's in that case. But in any case where a crime has happened, cybercrime has happened, we always tell, as part of the SOPs, don't touch those machine, remove it from the network, and keep it in the same state, or shut down the machine is what we tell. Depend upon a case to case basis. So in some cases we will tell them, okay, keep the machine on but remove it from network. In some cases we'll tell them, hey, it looks like just shut down the machine at this moment of time. Let us come, and then we'll do what to do. So it depend upon different type of cases where our advice will go, and we'll say do these action based on what has happened. So it is more of an incident type that we will give our advice what to do next. Yeah. Does it make does it
Oh
answer your
yeah, I
question,
mean
sir?
that makes a lot of sense. So it sounds
Yeah.
like basically do nothing except for maybe remove the machine from the network until you talk to
Yes.
someone that can really give you more um, instructions about that specific situation, right?
Right.
Right. Right. Right.
Correct.
So what I'll do is in next few slides, I'll give you some examples of old days how digital crime started, and some of very very interesting stories. Like this one, I'm not sure whether you know this guy. Is his name is John Draper, and he was become very famous and known as Cap and Crunch. So in olden days, he and his friends were able to understand there is a toy. Uh, uh, if we whistle the toy, it will generate the frequency at which AT&T phones are working. And if we whistle in that frequency, it will reset the phone lines. As a result, he was able to make phone calls free of cost because he will just whistle and get the phone reset. So he will able to make free calls one after another, do that. So he was able to do it till the time he was caught. But interesting is think about the way people have used the technology and understood the technology and understood the loopholes of the technology to f- to do the crime, or to or or misuse the system that they have given for. Uh, this one is very very interesting story, and this is in between 1970. There was a company called as Union Service Corporation in Denver, and they have this server Burrow P3500, uh, and in these 2 years they have 56 hard disks crashed in 2 years. Those days the computer engineer will not be there in Denver, so somebody has to be flown to Denver, and he will take almost like 8 to 20, he will take a couple of days time to fix it. uh, and this will keep on going for 2 years. In fact, they changed the entire power supply, which cost them around $500,000. They thought it could be a power supply issue, so they thought let's upgrade the power supply. They invested a lot of money, and they still the hard disk was crashing. Now they were not able to understand what could be the reason for this frequent hard disk crash. Now what they did was, after the 56 crash, they put a video camera without telling anyone about that there's a video camera being installed. And what they found was very interesting. There was a guy named Alfred who was basically the 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 IT guy who was to manage the servers at night time. And what they found was this guy was opening the server, removing the hard disk, and basically tampering the hard disk with a screwdriver. And they were completely shocked at why this guy is doing this. What is his motivation for doing this for so many years? And when they asked him, the reason was very completely thing that this guy was working in night shift for all those years. And when the first hard disk crash happened, which happened because of technical reason, he was able to speak to someone for the first time, because when those hardware engineer came, he was able to speak to them and communicate with them. So he found it very interesting that every time there's a hard disk crash happen, those guys are coming and able to interact with somebody, which he was not able to do that. So this is again a story where, and most of the stories, if you sound though during those time, was one of the reason was depressions that they found thing. This crime is something they call as salami crime, salami fraud. What basically means, instead of defrauding you for $100,000, can I just do a fraud of $2? And what it did was they changed the billing system in a way that it will show you that you have filled this, and and as a result you are paying that $2 extra, but actually you haven't, the gas has not been transferred into the vehicle. As a result, and these guys were able to do around cheat around 47,000 customers over a period of 3 or 4 years before they were caught. Okay. Uh, Another one, this is interesting, and this is the last one I will share. This is something that we found out while we doing investigation for one of the case. So there's this hospital where we did investigation, and we were doing investigation for tax evasion with the tax authority. And when we did the collected the evidences, we found in their system, they have a customer database and a customer table, and some records are of type L and some record of type M. And what we found, the L records, L type records, are there for every day. Like for last 3 years, they have a L record, but M record is only for today. And they were not able to understand why M is for today. So after certain, integration with those guys, they found out that hospital has basically changed the system in a way that anything that is being paid to the hospital through credit card, through check, are being categorized as L. Okay. And anything paid in cash over the counter is basically M. And the system was designed in a way that M entries will be deleted overnight. So from a tax purpose, tax authority, if you understand, they are not disclosing the income that they are receiving through cash. Now, the challenge was, how do we get the last 3 year data or maybe 5 year data the hospital was, how much cash earning they have done and how much tax they haven't paid. And through our team, we use multiple tools, our own tools and other tools, by which we're able to get all the data for 1 year, how much uh, cash data or cash collect was collected for 1 year, and then they extrapolate it for 3 years to get amount of money that they haven't paid tax for. So these are the challenges that you'll find in digital, that. And every time I'm very honest that every case that we investigate is unique. There are very few, I think there's unique challenges there, and there are different type of scenarios are there, and where we have to basically use our existing expertise, knowledge, and some other ways to find and go to the evidence that we are looking for. So to overall, to come to from a forensic perspective, what is the process that we follow? Now there are four process that we basically categorize. So whenever something happened, like suppose a crime has happened, a cyber crime has happened, or which involves, for example, digital evidences or digital artifacts like computer, mobile phones, your email account, we basically follow these four processes. The first is collection of evidences. And this is a very, very, very important aspect of your evidence. When a court using digital evidences, remember one thing: your opposite counsel, the moment they know it is a digital evidences, they will start questioning on the admissibility of the evidences. And as you correctly use the word chain of custody, it is very, very important for the digital forensic guy, chain of custody for the evidence collected. When I say a chain of custody, basically means how the evidence was collected and how it has moved from one person to another before coming to the court. So the entire sequence has to be maintained in a very, very, I would say, stringent manner, recorded, documented, with all proof. So, for example, if there is a case where a hard disk has been is a source of evidence for me, I'll basically do collection of evidence from hard disk. And as you said, I have to make a copy of. I cannot do investigation on the actual hard disk. I have to make a copy, and actually I have to make two copies of from the hard disk. And I'll go in detail when I take this forensic. I'll go in and where I say. So collection is very, very important. As I said, admissibility of evidence is this is where it comes here. So it is very important. How you store your preserve your evidences is also very very important. Where are you storing? How it is stored? Is it next to a cell tower? It is next to a magnetic force. Those things play a very important role in case of digital evidences. Then comes the analysis. There's people who will do and analyze those collected evidences, export the evidences into a format which can be produced in the code. So production is all about submitting your evidence in a form accepted in the code. So this, as I say, collection, preservation, analysis, and production is basically from an investigative perspective. These are the four stages, which is very very important. Now let me just come and talk about different type of forensic investigation, and these are some of them I put it. There can be many more. Them with every day technology is changing. I think when we started 15 years back, the only forensic that was done was disk forensic. Then came email forensic, then came mobile forensic, and then the whole world changed with social media forensic, cloud forensic, log forensic, drone forensic, and many more. So and each and every field is getting specialized. Specialized software has been written for each of these forensic types, and then they're experts in each of these types. Now coming to this forensic, I've just used a picture to show difference between an investigator, a digital forensic investigator, and a normal person. So if you have a disk, you basically you will see a C drive, a D drive, an E drive, and all. But as an investigator, and I'm going to go as a digital forensic investigator, we see everything as a, a what you call as bytes. Zero one is what we see. We understand only that language. We try to find evidences in that. Now, as I was saying, is that when we are trying to collect a hard disk, if there's a case where you have a hard disk to be collected, you basically will use softwares or hardwares to copy the data from your source hard disk, which is basically which has the evidences, and copy to multiple hard disks for making something called as a master copy, which will basically as a copy which can be referenced in future, and a working copy which where the forensic investigator like me will investigate. Now whenever you're copying a file from a source to destination, if you do it on your machine, everything changes. Your metadata changes. The created by, the created on, the last modified by, the last modified on changes. And as I said, your evidence cannot be tampered. So whenever you're copying from the source disk to a destination disk should remain the same. So there are specialized device which comes in the market, hardware called as write blockers. Whenever you're copying the data from source disk to destination disk, we use write blockers so that nothing is changed. Everything is copied from the source to destination. To verify that everything is same, something is done by forensic investigator is something called as hash value generation. Generate or a SHA hash of your source machine and same generate from a destination, and that is how you see my same on source and destination, nothing has changed. uh, so when we do a disk forensic, any software that you find disk forensic can read data from a formatted disk. Deleted files can be recovered. They can find web search history, external drive when it was. If you have password protected files, we can the disk forensic tools can read those data. Encrypted disks, logs, bad disks. So data can be restored from all these type of things. We have done investigation where web search history was enough for us to find out the cause of the crime. There are times when we have found, mostly in case of tax evasion, those files are deleted files, and we have recovered those deleted files and find out the trails to unaccounted cash or unaccount or non-taxable income. Coming to email forensic again, you see email something like this, a very normal with head with two CC and all. For us, everything again changes. We see from message headers, we see the MIME content, the hex data, the IP addresses. This is how we investigate email data, and it becomes more things when you have a huge amount of data. And I give you example. I think you have heard about Enron, right? The one of the most. I think we got a law in US and SOX too. Uh, the all the evidence in Enron was in email form. I think there were uh, 500,000 email was or more than that was analyzed to find out all the trails and the connection between their executives, who was involved, who was not involved. So email, one of the biggest, I think, case study. And these all these data set of Enron is available on the public data set, where they're able to do that. And so, if you're doing email forensic case study, or doing some study, you can use this Android dataset to do email investigation and find out how they have done it and how again we're talking about data in huge. Typically, like this forensic, uh, I think in 5 years back or 8 years back, our investigation will be with a 10 GB hard disk or 15 GB hard disk. But today we deal with terabytes of data or petabytes of data. In can be sometimes 100 of email accounts with each contain 30 GB of data or 50 GB of data. So the size of volume data has increased a lot from an investigation perspective. Mobile forensic again, uh, as I said, so you see from mobile the call data, the SMS, the WhatsApp chat, the Telegram chat, or anything file. For investigative perspective, we have access to all the data that you see. We also have access to data that you cannot see, the deleted data, the hidden to specialized software. We can basically go and check that. uh, I think mobile forensic has become challenging with both Android and Apple becoming very very stringent with their privacy policies and all. So it has become very very difficult now with Apple investigation. If we don't know the passcode, if the mobile phone is password protected, it does become a challenge for us to get to the data part. Android is still manageable till now. We are still able to bypass and extract data for investigation purpose. But Apple has become a challenge for us, where to go if you don't have the passcode, and how do you do next. Okay, so for mobile forensic, all these devices are being can be scanned. We have done so there's something called as JTAG. So if we have a burned mobile phones, so one of the case that we have worked on in India was there was a case where around 25 mobiles were burned. The accused has intentionally burned those mobile devices. What we were able to do it is use softwares and JTAG to recover data from those burned devices, and collect uh, some very very important piece of evidence which was used by law enforcement to proceed in the right direction of investigation. So I'm just showing an extraction process. So here I'm trying to show a hard disk as a talk. If you have a hard disk, I will basically use this as a cable connector, and then I'm using for a hardware called as a forensic imager. Now, what is this? Is this hard disk is connected to this? This device hard forensic imager has a write blocker. It ensures that nothing is changed when you're copying the data or reading the data and copying into the destination drive. So through this device, I can make multiple copies at the same time. So I can make a master copy and a working copy at the same time. Mobile phones again, as so if I have the passcode, I'm able to connect to my mobile forensic device and get data for that. And once I have a passcode, I can get to any piece of data. deleted, hidden, all the things. I do a lot of analysis, like link analysis. Like somebody has called X, and the X has called Y, the Y has called Z, and Z has sent the actual SMS of threatening somebody. I can find the log trail. I can find the trail how the crime was committed.
The mobile forensics is really interesting to me. I haven't dug deep into an Apple device, as you noted. It's a little
Yeah,
more difficult,
yeah,
but I've seen what's inside those Android devices, and it's
yeah.
not just the apps that you're used to seeing. You can see when someone unlocked it, maybe
Yeah.
proof that it was their face. You have the location that they were standing when
Yes.
they did that. You can see
Yeah.
their touch events where they actually touched their fingers on the screen. At least
Right.
for a period of time, you can retrieve that data.
Uh,
Um, so there's a lot. There's a lot that can be retrieved there. Um, I see you're featuring a Celebrite here.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, the mostly widely used device. I want to share one of the case study for mobile forensic. We didn't also, and it's a very interesting case. There was a case. The employee has done a case against the employer because the employer fired the employee based on performance, and the employee said, "I have SMS showing that I am a good performer." So that was a source of evidence based on which he filed the case. It took almost a year time to reach out to the level of investigation, the second level investigation, and where the employee came into picture and said, okay, we want to do a mobile forensic of your mobile device. So they did a mobile forensic, and unfortunately, that particular SMS based on which the crime was done, or the case was filed, was not available. And it was not found when they did the mobile forensic. And they reach out to us, and the employee reach out to us and said, I know that SMS exists, and I haven't deleted it, so I don't know what has happened with my phone. Have they done something with my phone as a result that SMS is not available? And initially we tried with different tool like Celebrite or Oxygen or XYZ. We could not find any way. And then as I said, the best thing for a mobile for a forensic guy is hex. When nothing works, go to the bits and bytes. And what we did was we tried to get the entire data of that, load the entire data into a WinHex editor. And these are the old phones I'm talking about, like 10, 12 years back. And if you remember, they were not smartphones, they were normal Nokia phones, and which has a limitation, if you remember, of number of SMS you can store. So if you have more than 100 SMS, the mobile phone will auto delete the 101 SMS, because
yeah,
you can store 100. Now this was what we found, was based on the WinHex investigation, was that if I delete an SMS intentionally, if as a user I'm deleting an SMS, there's one particular bit, in that structure which you flagged one, because the user is deleting that SMS. But if a user is not deleting the SMS, it will be zero. And through that one single bit of code and say, hey, this is the reason why this SMS was deleted, and the court accepted the argument, and the investigation, or the case was forwarded, proceeded further. But this is where I'm saying, I just thought of sharing this case because it was very interesting. It took us almost 2 weeks to come to that conclusion, but as I said, every forensic guy love going back to the hex, or something when the devices doesn't work, or the software doesn't work. It is the knowledge, and by which we are basically find out those the right evidence. Yeah, yeah. So I'm just listed out some of the vendors of in the forensic world. There are, I think 10 years back there may be 7 to 8, but today we have more than 50 vendors in the forensic world across the world. They have been selling different type of forensic world. I have listed one. Autopsy is an open source tool. Please use it if you want to learn. They're very like one of the golden principle of a forensic investigator is they have to buy multiple tools. Like if I'm doing investigation, I will not only investigate my data, analyze my data with one tool. I will do with at least two tools. Ensure the data, the results that come from the first tool matches the data that comes from the second tool. So to ensure if I go to the court and the other counsel try to defeat me, there's a problem in the tool and something, I can still stand by my investigation. So people typically use multiple tools in the forensic world. Uh, One thing that I'll share, and I've been talking about to most of my customer. I think one of the cases that we have seen mostly in corporate world is IP theft, and people leave the company, take the data away, and by the time they come to know the employee has taken your data, taken your customer, it is already 9 months or 1 year, and the device they were working with your company has been given to somebody else, and before giving to somebody else, they deleted the disk. Okay, that's what you do, right? You give the laptop before the laptop is given to the new person or old person or another person. You basically format that disk. This is where what we are saying is that as part of the exit process, start uh, making a digital forensic copy of the laptop or the workstation
You're talking
for
about inside a company when it moves from
yes,
one
yes,
person to another.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we're saying please do that. It will help you in those scenario. For if nothing happens for 2 years, you can remove it, but please start doing for critical resources because that will help. Because what we have seen in all these cases, because that evidences, because the laptop was given to somebody else, even we have found those evidences, we cannot go to the court and because those are not admissible. So we have a 100% chance of losing those cases. So because you have maintained the copy of the data in front of the employee also know he cannot do something wrong, and you also know if something wrong has been done, I have data that I can use for investigation where I can take it to the court and be admissible. So with
And we
that, I end up my session. If there's a question, more than happy to answer.
Well, I
So
know that. Well, I
go
was
ahead,
just going
Matt.
to say, I know that we can that those same concepts you're talking about, Debasish, we can do in other places. Like we can do that in the
Right.
cloud. We can do that
Yes.
in other places to take these snapshot copies.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I really, Amin, I was curious. SysTools is out there with with this toolbox, and um, I maybe you could help sum up, how this is being used in industry. What is what is the takeaway that we need our partner community to understand about what you guys have to offer?
So, and as far as the partner community for which is working with Fort Mesa, so like Debashi said, this is being used in the corporate industry. It's being used by private investigators, lawyer, legal firms, and things like that. So, a lot of your partners will have legal firms. They'll probably have some government agencies. Any private corporate industry who want to be able to do any kind of examination of their mail, by all means, and even if it's not even with around email, if it's just about digital forensics in general, you're more than we're more than happy to be able to provide advice and inputs as to what can be done. Like I said, we do email forensics, but we are partnered with other companies that do mobile and the disk forensics and all other different kinds of forensics as well. So between the group of companies that we kind of work with on the forensic side, including some of the larger players, we can come up with a set of suggestions if you have clients who need to be able to do some kind of digital forensics. So reach out to us, and we're happy to be able to provide any inputs around that.
The one thing that I'll add to Amin is I think as partners, they can reach out to the customer and say the one thing that we have seen as a shade that whenever an incident happen, there's a lot of chaos in the organization to identify what has happened, why it has happened, and this is where things goes wrong because of lack of knowledge. It is very important SOPs or standard operating procedures or set of rules that whenever something happen, instead of being chaotic points to ensure we know these guys cannot find out what happened, but please don't do these things which will basically hamper your investigation. So that is what we do a lot in with our customers, where we tell them to set up the SOPs and follow these processes when something happens. So when something happens, before you call somebody for investigation, please make sure you are not doing anything wrong which can hurt your interest in future.
Absolutely. And Matt, over the next month or so, we're going to be releasing 3 articles around digital forensics. So, best practices around digital forensics, what you should and what you should not do in digital forensics. We will be releasing those articles on LinkedIn. It's a series of 3 articles that we're currently working on, and happy to send it to you as well, so that you can pass it on to your partner community, so that they have the best practices of what should or should not be done, as the Bashir says.
Well, yeah, just get those over to us, and I will make sure that we share that with our audience. But as always, guys, you can follow us on LinkedIn. Our videos are out on YouTube, but you can also find SysTools out on LinkedIn, and you can follow their latest insights out there as well. Um, Next week, we are going to be joined by Mark Howells from Dakota Ridge Marketing. We're going to be talking about search engine optimization, and I know you guys think that SEO is like old, but it's really changing with this generative search experience. And so we're going to be talking about the optimizing for the generative search, which is just, it's taken over Google, it's taken over Microsoft search. People are now looking for things on the internet with large language models. So optimizing your company to be positioned in this new generation is important. So come watch next Friday and join us with Mark. And until then, like, subscribe, find us out on YouTube. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.